This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the all-in-one website platform helping you succeed online. Hey everyone, so today is another battle of the Ultras with the OPPO Find X9 Ultra up against the Samsung Galaxy S26 Ultra. And while Samsung and Apple have really dominated the smartphone industry in both phones and camera hardware, at least here in the United States, global competition from the likes of OPPO as well as Vivo, Xiaomi, Huawei, and Honor, where most, if not all, have really surpassed the likes of Samsung and Apple as far as camera hardware as well as image processing. And I think in today's competition, at least from a hardware perspective, that's going to be a similar story with the OPPO having the larger camera sensors across the board, with the exception of its secondary periscope telephoto lens at 10x, where the Samsung's 5x periscope zoom lens is slightly larger. But they both have very capable pro-level camera systems. Both utilize dual telephoto lenses, so we're going to see a very good competition from some very capable pro-level camera systems here today. And while OPPO has the advantage in overall camera hardware, in smartphone cameras it really comes down to software image processing, and the likes of OPPO as well as the other manufacturers I had mentioned earlier in this video have been making a lot of strides for a while now, and I think other people have been taking notice as well in recent years. And there is also something to be said about familiarity, where I think a lot of people have owned Samsung phones for a very long time and have become accustomed to Samsung's image processing. So we're going to see which one wins out here, because I'm going to show you a bunch of photos and videos in both good and low light conditions to help you decide which of these two camera systems are going to be best for your smartphone camera needs. So go ahead and take a look at all the photos and videos and let me know what you think. However, just a quick break from the video to remind you that having a personal or business website is a great way to organize and centralize your online content and activity, from news posts to blog posts to social media activity to any content that you produce like photos or videos. So if that sounds good to you, then today's sponsor, Squarespace, definitely has you covered. Simply sign up for a free trial, then use their Blueprint AI website builder to put together your website in minutes, or select from their library of templates to get started. It's easy to pull in content from YouTube, Instagram, other social sites, and even your own photos and videos. Quickly add your social media links to quickly display them on your site as well. It's also easy to add and customize an online form for people and brands to easily reach out and contact you. And when you're ready to publish your website, go to squarespace.com/grantlikestech for 10% off your first website or domain. I'd like to thank today's sponsor, Squarespace, for sponsoring today's video, which helps me bring you more content like this. So let's go ahead and get back to the video. Hey everyone, so this is a rear video test of the OPPO Find X9 Ultra and Galaxy S26 Ultra. As you can see, they both are actively recording from the rear facing cameras. And we are starting out with the ultra wide angle cameras on each at 4K 60 frames per second. And yes, it's overcast today, so not a ton of blues in the skies, a lot of clouds though. So I'm going to pan around to give you a side-by-side view of how these ultra wide angle cameras compare in this particular scene. Pan down and back up here. And we'll move into the main camera on the OPPO and on the Samsung. So there you go. So these are now the main cameras, and I'll do the same thing. I'll just pan around to give this side-by-side view of how the main cameras here compare in this setting in the park. Again, very overcast, not a lot of bright sunlight, so we'll see how this does. We'll pan over to the right and we'll test the zoom out on that cell tower. So OPPO 3x telephoto there and 3x telephoto here on the Samsung, and S26 Ultra also can go up into a 5x telephoto, and we'll go to 6x there on the OPPO and move into 10x on the OPPO and on the Samsung, and move all the way into max 25x zoom here on the Samsung and max 30x there on the OPPO. Both pretty steady, a little bit steadier on the OPPO maybe. We'll hold it still. Yeah, it definitely freezes the picture a little bit better on the OPPO. They're both very clear. And we'll back them both out, Samsung and on the OPPO. There we go. And we'll test autofocus here on the post. So there you go with the OPPO first. Very snappy focus and refocus away there. Nice natural shallow depth of field on the OPPO there, and should be same with the Samsung honestly, but it should be a little bit shallower depth of field on the OPPO. One more time with the Samsung and go back to the OPPO. So there you go. And we'll walk down the stairs to test the stabilization and show you what this looks like here side by side as we walk through the pathway. And then I'll also try to jog to try to stress out that stabilization a bit. So there you go, a quick video test here on the OPPO Find X9 Ultra and Galaxy S26 Ultra. Let me know what you think. Everyone, so here's a video test of the front-facing cameras of the OPPO Find X9 Ultra and Galaxy S26 Ultra. This is being shot at 4K 60 frames per second, and the OPPO is on the ultra wide angle camera setting. I can turn it into 1x. You tap it here, 1x. So that's what the 1x crop looks like, and it can even go into a 2x crop. So that's about how close you can get with the front-facing camera on the OPPO. I'll set this back to just a standard 1x. So it looks about the same on each. And so we'll go ahead and I'll just pan around and give you a feel for how these cameras perform. As some of the lighting conditions change, it's pretty overcast, so it's not going to be very dramatic like if it was really sunny. But there is some change here. There's more sun coming out of this way, so you can see what that looks like with some of that shift going on. And I'll keep panning all the way around, so you can see what that looks like here. Back to where we started, and I'll just walk so we can test out the stabilization. And you can see what that looks like here side by side. So let me know what you think about the front-facing cameras here on the OPPO Find X9 Ultra and the Galaxy S26 Ultra. So we're back with the front-facing cameras, this time with portrait video turned on each. And so the OPPO is set at an aperture of f/2.8, that's fully adjustable, and the Samsung uses a scale, I think, of 0 to 7. This is on 5 out of 7. So you can adjust this background blur as much or little as you want. And they're both limited here to 4K 30 frames per second recording in this mode. So I'm gonna do the same thing. I'll just pan around to give you a side-by-side view of how this effect holds up with some movement, and as some of the lighting conditions change here, again, overcast skies, but a little bit more light this way. This should be probably looking a little bit better, but we'll keep panning around and we'll get to where we started. And I'll just walk to show you the stabilization as well as how this background effect holds up with some movement. So let me know what you think about this portrait video effect here on the OPPO Find X9 Ultra and Galaxy S26 Ultra. So here's a low light video test of the rear cameras of the OPPO Find X9 Ultra and the Galaxy S26 Ultra. These are the ultra wide angle cameras to start out on each at 4K 60 frames per second. So I'm just going to pan around here to give you a side-by-side view of how these ultra wide angle cameras compare. And the OPPO's ultra wide angle camera has a slightly larger sensor, so it should be letting in a little bit more light. Should be a little bit better here in low light than Samsung. And we'll go ahead and move into the main camera on the OPPO and now on the Galaxy. And here are the main cameras. You see brighter picture because these are larger main camera sensors, letting more light. You see more definition in those trees. So I'm gonna do the same thing. I'll just pan around to give you a side-by-side view of how these main cameras compare, how they both handle that really bright street light there, and everything else in this same particular scene. And we can go ahead and pan over to the right and we can test out the telephoto lenses and some of the zoom. So we can go to the 3x here on the OPPO, as well as the 3x telephoto on the Samsung. And Samsung also has 5x telephoto here. And we'll move into a, let's go punch into a 6x on the OPPO. OPPO has a 10x telephoto lens. You see things get a little bit darker because the switch lenses, it's not as, it's the OPPO's smallest lens, so we'll let in the least amount of light, so it got a little bit darker. And here's a 10x, which is a crop on the telephoto for the Samsung. And we'll go to a max 25x zoom here on the Samsung, max 30x zoom here on the OPPO. So you see how this looks here. Zoom quality and low light, pretty clear on the sign on each. We'll back them both out here on the Samsung and on the OPPO, and we'll pan over here and we'll just start walking so we can test the stabilization, show you what that looks like here side by side, as well as move over to a bit of a darker area. A lot of light back there. This little stretch, a little bit darker, less light, especially this stretch around the corner here. A lot darker, looks brighter on the OPPO, at least in the viewfinder. And as you round the corner, you can see a really bright light over there, lighting everything up. So you can see how it handles some of the light transitions from maybe bright to darker to bright. And we'll pull up here and pan out this way, away from that really bright light. You can see what this looks like down this stretch, which is looking a little bit darker, to be honest. There is some cast light from the really bright light on my right, but overall a fairly darker stretch. OPPO looks like it's trying to really brighten up the scene a lot more than Samsung, at least in the viewfinder. We'll pan up here. You can see some of the clouds at night here, and there's obviously going to be light pollution. And OPPO really trying to brighten things up. You can see passing plane up there. And we'll go ahead and pan around this way, back down this darker area here. So that's a quick low light video test here at 4K 60 frames per second on each of these phones. Let me know what you think about the overall quality here, and general comments and what you think. Alright, so here's a low light video test of the front facing cameras of the OPPO Find X9 Ultra and Galaxy S26 Ultra. This is being shot at 4K 60 frames per second, and the OPPO is in its ultra wide angle camera setting. I can move it into the 1X now, so it's going to be closer to the same focal length as the Samsung. And we can go ahead and move into 2X on the OPPO, so you can get really tight framing if you want there on the front facing camera, and it's cropping in the lens, so you can see a lot more noise there, especially in low light. So we'll move it back out to this 1X. And I'll move over here so you can see what this looks like here with some pretty bright lights around me, including the really bright light back there and how it handles that. But overall, pretty optimal lighting conditions here, lots of light around me, giving it the cameras the best opportunity to show its best. And at 4K 60 frames per second, the Samsung is looking darker, especially in the viewfinder. But at 30 frames per second, it will get brighter. That's pretty much with most phones. So if you wanted to get brighter, especially in low light, shoot at 30 frames. But OPPO is doing a really great job here at 60 frames per second. I'll come back and shoot another video at 30 frames to show you what I'm talking about. But I'll just go ahead and start walking so I can show you what the stabilization looks here side by side, as well as what things look like as we get over to a slightly darker area away from all those really bright lights that are around me. So right here, a little bit darker, you can see what it looks like here. And if I pull up here and pan all the way around, you can see what this looks like here with a bunch of really bright street lights behind me, and how these phones are handling all those lights. Not too much flare out, which is pretty good. And we'll go back here to this area that's a bit darker without all the lights around, so you get a side-by-side view of a much darker area here, and OPPO in the viewfinder at least really brightening things up much more than they really are, but looking pretty clear, where most phones are going to show you what the Samsung is showing you, which is a little bit darker, a little bit dingier, because that is the poor quality of the lighting that's around me. But again, in the viewfinder at least, OPPO's doing a pretty good job here at 60 frames per second at getting a much clearer looking picture. So I'm going to stop the video, come back at 4K 30 to show you kind of what I'm talking about on the Samsung and give you my final thoughts on this comparison. Hey, so we're back with the front-facing cameras, this time at 4K 30 frames per second. So you can see what I was talking about. The Samsung image is already much brighter, not really as bright and as clear in the viewfinder as what I'm seeing in the OPPO. OPPO's pretty much looking pretty much the same as it was at 60 frames per second, so very nice, clear overall image quality from the OPPO. Again, at least from what I see in the viewfinder. You're seeing this now as it's been offloaded, but I'll just walk through the same test here so you can see how the Samsung performs at 30 frames per second comparatively to its 60 frames per second performance, and I'll give you my final thoughts of what I think about this comparison. So as we walk through this way, again, much brighter on the Samsung, a little bit clearer than it was at 60. Same thing if we pan all the way around, it doesn't get as dark on the Samsung here. And we'll come back over here into this area so you can see what this looks like with less light side by side again. And OPPO still looking nice and very clear, not as dingy of a lighting on the OPPO, clears the picture right up. The Samsung is looking brighter than it did at 30, not quite as crisp picture quality. Again, in the viewfinder this could be different once I offload everything, but let me know what you thought about the overall camera comparison between the OPPO Find X9 Ultra and the Galaxy S26 Ultra, and which Ultra you thought you preferred or maybe won this comparison. But I will say that overall the camera hardware on the OPPO probably did win out here. I did prefer the overall optics on the OPPO. I thought that it could focus in closer to subjects on pretty much all its lenses, including the telephoto lenses. So if you like telemacro photography, I think you're gonna really prefer the OPPO. The shallower depth of field was on the OPPO, much more pleasant to me. So I think just from an optics standpoint and shooting from the overall camera hardware and what it looks like and the experience, I prefer the OPPO cameras, which is not a shock to me. I thought that would win from the beginning just because the overall sensors are better. OPPO has great image processing, and it proved to be true, at least in my experience and what I saw. Now, they both are pro camera level systems, and so if you know what you're doing with the camera, you have every ability to take photos and videos and edit them in post to get them to where you personally prefer them. So if you're skilled with the camera, I think in skilled hands, either of these phone cameras are going to do very well. But overall, from an ease of shoot and just what I personally preferred using, as well as what I like seeing, I personally would take the OPPO over the Samsung. But that's my personal preference here. Do let me know what you thought, and if you have either or both of these phones, what your experience has been. Shoot me a comment down below, as well as if you have any questions, leave them down below as well. I'll try to answer what I can. And as always, thanks for watching.